and welcome to the Rest of Us podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, looking forward to talking to you. We had a good conversation last week, I believe, and excited to kind of hear your story and have you share more about your business, what you do, and things like that. But before we get into your story, let's just have you introduce yourself and your business and what you do.
All right. Well, I go by the name of Ashton Martin. It's Ashton Martin on streaming platforms. I'm mainly a music artist, musician, songwriter. I own AME, which stands for Ashton Martin Entertainment, as well as Awake, Motivate, Educate. Outside of that, I'm also getting into the Medicare world, as well as business consultation. So out of the nutshell of everything that I do, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into all of that different areas. I have a lot of good questions to ask. I'm really interested in. So let's just kind of start where your story starts with kind of how you got into music and how you got into, entertainment and business.
Yeah, so I was pretty much born around music. My grandmother sung in a choir. She also did opera, which I didn't even know until right almost before she passed. She told me about that. My father was a singer and a songwriter as well, and my auntie was a singer as well. So my dad's side, I was pretty much all around music. And then I grew up in a single parent household, which was my mom's side, and she kept music around me. So she constantly fed that want that I had. So anytime like Christmas would come around, even if she couldn't afford much, she would always give me like CDs or albums. That was the thing at my time growing up. Or when it became streaming, she got me MP3 devices, things like that. She always kept me fed with music. It started with poetry for me. In middle school, it began as a way of just kind of like outletting. To be honest with you, I began writing before I could even remember. It's really my elderlies coming telling me like you used to write poems in church. You used to the holiday poems. You used to write your own poems during that time. I didn't even know this. I think for me, my earliest memories was in middle school. Just began as like an outlet. Just finding something I was actually good at. When you're a teenager, you kind of like still finding your way. And in my family, I kind of was at a weird point because everybody was way older than me. So I was kind of like alone until like my younger cousins and my younger siblings came. So I was really trying to find a way in to kind of like impress the adults around me and kind of fit in a sense. Tried sports, tried all these different avenues. And then I picked up the pen. I was like, oh, snap, I'm actually good at this. And then looking at their reaction made me even go even further. So from poetry, I took it to freestyling. And then I became like the young kid on the block. It's like, yo, check this dude out. He can rap. And I remember at a point in time they had, this was when battle rapping was still a big thing too. I was battling adults, like literally grown men. I was literally battling them. And then people were trying to like put money behind them. Like I had people trying to sign me then, but my mom was like, nah, she wasn't going. She was like, no, there's no way I'm finna have my kid under y'all wing. And it was a good call because I think half of those guys ended up in prison anyways. But I think that was like the beginning of like, oh, I'm actually pretty good at this. From high school, I began to like actually compose songs. That's when I got into actual songwriting. And from there, that's when it became more of an outlet than just something I was doing, because I was really just expressing myself. Really, I really didn't care about the audience. I really didn't care about who was listening. It was me just expressing myself. And that's when I noticed how people kind of began to relate to it. And then fast forward and, you kind of see that this can actually be a thing, because I never thought it could be something that you can make a living off of. To me, It was just something that I love to do. But growing up and seeing the business side of it, I was like, oh, you can actually make a living off of that. And so that's when I began moving in that route. I said about 4 to 5 years ago, like actually making it to a full-time thing. And going full-fledged with it. So that's kind of like my story when it comes to music and how I've gotten to this point.
Yeah. So you talked about not really seeing music as a place where you could have a career, and then now, you have built a career obviously in managing. What were kind of the things that you saw where it was like, oh, I could actually make this a business and like, make some money off of this and make a living off of this?
It wasn't really till I moved to Atlanta. Growing up, I grew up in North Florida, so I'm from a small town. It's Marietta, Florida. And you don't really see many entrepreneurs in general. And then I moved to Atlanta, which was the city of like Black entrepreneurs, and then entrepreneurship in itself, and then music itself. So I was like, oh snap! Actually, watching people do it, I'm like, okay, we can actually do this. And my wife began to manage me as well. So we began putting together our own shows here. I began hosting open mics. I began to go on to open mics, hitting anything that I can find. I did my first tour in 2017, which was just a market tour, and we literally put it together ourselves. And then from there in 2019, we did our first international tour, and that's when it really opened up my mind. Like, okay, this can really be done, and it really doesn't matter what people look at on the outside. On the outside presence, people could look at like maybe followers or social media and think like, oh, you may be at a certain bracket, but there's people that's eating overseas that you've never heard of that's literally making probably more than, if not close to what mainstream artists are making. And that's when I kind of found my lane with it. I'm like, okay, I really want to build an actual like cult fan base instead of just going for the mainstream, just out there. Like I know my specific target group. And then from then we began working on like the actual target group, making sure that the music matches to it, and things of that nature. So it's kind of like two different hats in a sense. I have like the artist hat that I wear, and then I have like the other side, aftermath. And I never try to mix those two, because it like, I feel like when you come in the music with a management mindset, it kind of taints the music. And if you come in with in the management with a music mindset, you're gonna be biased. You know what I'm saying? You're not gonna look at things from like a realistic view. You're always gonna see it from, So it's like it's a dual-edged sword, and independence not for everybody. But Atlanta was really when it opened my view to seeing like what can happen with music, what you can actually do.
Yeah. I think when you're a creative person, when you have a creative business, it's really hard to run a business and be creative at the same time, because you have, what the business needs, whether that's, money or marketing or meeting with people, networking, all these things. But then you have the creative side of it, which, maybe you want to take longer on a project than a client wants, or maybe you want to put more time into it, or spend more money on it, or do all these things that aren't necessarily, they don't match what the business needs. And so it's really hard to kind of do both and be both, especially if you're on your own, doing your own thing. How did you balance both of those, the creative outlet of it, and then also running the business and building a successful business out of it?
Yeah, so me at heart, I'm gonna always be an artist. I'm gonna be a creative first. And that's why I give kudos to my wife, Dakiria, because she's more business strictly mine. So she kind of gives me the realistic to things when I curate. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times when I get in my artistry mode, I'm very shut off. Like I'll like literally like separate myself and go into my own world, and then I'm just focused on creating. And then I have periods in time where it's like, okay, I've created enough material. Now I need to figure out how to structure this material. Now I need to figure out how to market this material. Where are we going with this material? What are we going to do from here? So it's kind of like and I would say it's easy, but it's really not. Sometimes it does get difficult, but I think you have to have a clear focus of when, which hat to wear. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I have to take on more of one or the other hat, like more than I would like to. But it is what it is. It's the route that I chose. But I think with me, what keeps me in balance is just taking advantage of my creativity when it comes, and then once the creativity is gone, going from there, and then putting on the management hat. Okay, now what we're going to do with this, how we're going to do with this, paying attention to what's trending, paying attention to like, how can I fit my own self into what's going on? You know what I'm saying? And make it in my own way. So I think that's kind of like the balance. I kind of ride off of my creativity because it comes in spurts. Like sometime I may have a month, 2-3 months that's just creative. It just comes. And then like right after that, it may be like a dry spell. So to me, before I used to get like almost depressed about it, I'd be like, man, where did all this creativity go? But then I grew to realize, I think it was Rhapsody, she said that she was like, when you have writer's block, that means you need to live more. I mean, you've written everything, you said everything you need to say. Now it's time to live. And so in that living moment, I take that time to like, okay, now I'm going to go and manage how I want to put this together, what I'm going to do. Let's structure out the next quarter, because in the music business, it goes by quarters. So it's like, usually I'll structure out my next quarters based off what I create in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. Were there any examples in your business where you kind of let the creativity run the business, and then other examples where you maybe had to push some of the creativity down because of a business need where like you had to just like prioritize one or the other?
Yeah, so I can go through last year. It's a perfect example. I put out a total of two projects last year, and they were approached totally different. The first project was entitled Golden Child. Golden Child was definitely more I say market management mindset when I put that together. It was at the top of the year. I had already created the music for it the previous year. So I already had that sold up and good to go. So from there it was pretty much like, okay, now I gotta figure out how to market it. That one also had the more music videos to it, the more visuals to it. And it did pretty good, you know what I'm saying? But I approached the fourth quarter, third and fourth quarter with a project entitled Beautiful Pain last year. And that one was more so of just like just creativity. It was crazy because I actually made those projects at the same time, and it was really kind of like a test. I wanted to see like what would do the best overall. So I actually let my fans, I have a text message based thing that I use, and I let the fans choose which project was going to be released first, and they chose Golden Child. So I kind of figured that too, because marketing wise, it looked the best. I had the most visuals for it, so I was like, okay, boom, put that out. And then I released Beautiful Pain. So in the end of how it, at the end of everything, I would say visibly, when you look up my information, if you just to type in anything like on Google or YouTube, Golden Child songs from there is probably gonna come up first. But when you go back and look at the streaming data, what lasted the longest, Beautiful Pain actually had the more streams, and Beautiful Pain is actually still continuous, getting the more, it's growing to this day. So, I mean, it's kind of like I can't really say what worked, what didn't. It's just really just about the approach of those. It was interesting to see how it worked out. But to me, I think the creativity goes further. The creativity doesn't initially have the most like initial bump, but I feel like over time, the more creativity you put in the process, it lasts longer. It lives with people longer. You know what I'm saying? Because that's kind of like the difference between those two projects. Golden Child was like hit when it dropped, and then after a while, kind of fizzled down. Beautiful Pain is people are still streaming that product. I released another one, but people are still streaming songs from that to this day. So, kind of seeing the difference in those two.
Yeah, and the way that when I was thinking as you were talking, kind of thinking about how I've seen it in the music industry. Obviously, I'm not in the music industry, so you may know better than I do. But there's artists that'll put out like collaboration albums where like every song is a collaboration, and I feel like that may be a bit more marketing wise because you have all these names on there. Like Ed Sheeran did one, I believe, and he has like every big name artist is on that album. It's all those songs are really good, or a lot of the songs are really good, but that might be more business wise a better decision to do all this like collaboration. But then some of his other projects are maybe more personal, and individual projects are maybe more personal. Is that kind of how you kind of think about it, where like there's some albums that like you want to collaborate and it's good business wise, it gives you a little bit more marketing, but then there's the personal projects that maybe you don't necessarily care if it gets 100,000 streams, million streams, whatever it is, but you're just happy you put that project out?
Yeah, and that's literally those two specific projects what I was speaking on. Golden Child had features on it, and Beautiful Pain didn't. And you see, overall, Beautiful Pain lasted the longest. So, I get it in the sense of marketing and putting features together. And I've seen albums that did the same exact thing. I give you an example. Last year, when you had DJ Khaled release the album. And if you know DJ Khaled, it's all features. It's nothing but features. And then you had Tyler, the Creator, who released one who barely had any features. And Tyler won the Grammy. Tyler had the best overall album when it comes to number wise. So it's like, marketing wise, right off the bat, you would see DJ Khaled's album everywhere. But when you go back and look at the numbers, Tyler, the Creator, actually did more numbers than his album. So it's kind of like, it's a flip side to it. Me personally, I chose looking from what that happened in my project. It's a space and time for each, but I'm gonna usually go with the more creative route and the more what's personal to me, because I feel like that's what attracts people. That's what makes people stay with you longer. You know what I'm saying? And what I've created out of my fan base, that's what I've created. And I also ask my fans a lot, what do you want to hear from me? And a lot of time that's what I get. Now, every now and then they be like, yeah, I want to hear this too, though. But most of the time it's like, I really want to hear that. Like, I want to hear that heartfelt. I want to hear that creativity. I want to hear that. That's what initially made me attract you in the first place. So that's usually why what I keep. And that's what what I put into my recent EP that I released. And it's did the best out of anything I ever put out. So I guess that's a testament to it. So
Yeah. I think like DJ Khaled, like he'll release songs that like they might be like the song of the summer for that year or something like that. But like if fans wise, I feel like people are gonna go back to listen to Tyler Creator's individual albums a lot more. And like maybe 5 years from now, they're gonna like go back to that first album, go back to that third album, or whatever, versus like that song that was on the radio all the time during one summer out of 1 year. So that makes a lot of sense. I want to kind of transition the conversation into your AME, Ashton Martin Entertainment, because this was something that I kind of asked you about, the difference between like an independent artist versus a label artist, and kind of you told me like that's something that you can really talk about and like explain what an independent artist actually means, because when I hear independent, I think like solo, doing it all on their own, but you were telling me like that's not necessarily the case, and also like what a label looks like versus what you're doing and kind of how it differs. So we just talk about kind of first the independent artist angle of what that actually looks like.
yeah, so the start with this. So to me, and it really varies to who you're talking to, what independent is and what independent isn't. Because to me, when you're breaking down like the technicality of the word, nobody is independent technically, because we all have to go through some funnel of something to distribute our music. But in the sense of the music industry, to me, independence means that you're not signed to a major record label. Now, you can still be signed to a label. It's just not one of the main labels like the Def Jams, like the Atlantic, like, you know, the big mainstream labels. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a bunch of indie, you know, labels out there too that people are signed to, and they pretty much still do everything themselves. So to me, that's still independent. You just got like an extra push behind you. You know what I'm saying? So to me, that's the difference between being signed and being independent, to me, in my mindset. But I guess technically you could say anybody that's independent is just they're not under any type of contract. Just to, you know, if you want to be technical about it. But in the sense of music, that's really what it means. You're just not signed to a major label. If you're not, then you're independent.
Yeah.
So
but you still have like a team around you. You still have people that are kind of helping you build out maybe the business side of it, the tour side of it, the actual like money side of it, maybe the financial side of it, because like we talked about, like there's the personal projects and there's the business side of the work, where you really need to have, if you're a really creative person, you may not be able to think about the business as much as somebody who is a entertainment manager or a tour manager or things like that can actually like think about what is good for the business and what is good for you financially as an artist.
Yeah, so even as an independent artist, you still have a team behind you. Now, most independent artists do wear several hats. That's just what comes with it. You're gonna be adaptive, and we're in a different type of climate in the music industry. Most artists are more adaptive now. We do more things. We know how to record ourselves now. We know how to engineer now. We know how to make productions now. It's usually not just one hat, but it's impossible to wear all the hats, especially when it begins to grow. Like even if you can do it, it's just that you won't even have the time to do it, to be able to focus on it correctly. So, you know, you kind of learn as an independent artist to run yourself as a label. So in that sense of like running yourself as a label, so with a label, like you mentioned, you have the tour manager, you have the bookings, who is handling your bookings, who is setting up your shows, you have your personal manager, who is making sure that you're where you need to be when you're supposed to be, who's making sure that everything is aligning like it's supposed to. Because if you know, in this business, people will like try to mess you over in a lot of ways. So it's always best to have somebody at least watching your back on that end that has your best interest in hand. You know what I'm saying? Who is handling the money? You know what I'm saying? It's a business, so you still got taxes due at the end of the year. Who is making sure all your receipts, everything is held accountable? Who is making sure when it comes that time that you have the proof to show? You know, who is making sure your distribution is working right? Who is checking your streamings? Who is checking your trends? Who is knowing like, okay, this is the hottest song, this is not the hottest song, let's focus on this, let's not focus on that. It's a lot of things that comes into play even as an independent artist. And the more people that you have in your circle, the more successful you will be. Now, I would say this though, it's not necessarily about quantity. To me, it's more about quality, because that's the difference between independence and a label. In a label, you have a lot of people that don't necessarily care about you, but you have more resources. As an independent, you have to have people around you that actually care about you. So you may have only 3 people on your team, But those three people are gonna go super hard. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna make sure that they're taking care of everything that they can take care of because they're only focusing on you. They don't have 10 other artists to focus on. You know, depending on your level, you may begin signing artists. But in my case, they don't have so many artists to focus on. So we're all working as a common mind. They know exactly how to speak if I wasn't speaking. Like if someone's to ask something, they know exactly what I would like to do and what I would not like to do. And it's important to have those type of people around. Even creating the music, you know what I'm saying? If you don't do all the hats, you still got to have people that's helping you. You know what I'm saying? You got to have somebody with the production. You got to have somebody who knows how to mix and make sure your sound is on point like it's supposed to be. And even coming down to shows, who's going to DJ? Are you going to do a DJ? Are you going to have a live band? Who are those people? Where's the venue? Who's setting these things up? Who's promoting these things? It's a lot of different avenues that come into independence that people have to really take into mind when stepping into that role. Because me personally, I know independence is preached a lot, but to be totally honest with you, it's not for everybody. You definitely got to have an entrepreneur mindset. You know what I'm saying? And it's also about your goals too, because everybody has different goals coming in the music industry. Some people just want to be famous. And if you coming in, you just want to be famous, I'm going to tell you, bro, don't go independent. Get signed to a label because they're going to get you famous quicker. But if you want more so of like, oh, I want to do what I want to do. I want to have ownership over what I want to do. I'm willing to do the work now to get recognized later. You know, I can deal without the recognition right now as long as I'm putting the work in and making sure I'm establishing what I'm established. Then yeah, for sure, independence is the way to go. But like I said, I don't want to put that narrative out and make it seem like it's so easy because it's not. And you got to have a team. You know what I'm saying to even move correctly as a unit.
Yeah, and also like I feel like again I'm not in the music industry, so I may not know as well as you might. But once you get to a certain size, it may make more sense to be on, you know, a bigger label like an Atlantic, like a Universal, like Taylor Swift, for example. Like she has this massive tour. If she had a 10-person team and she was independent, that might not get to that size. She might not get to that size. I don't know who she's signed to, but you know, just in general, like once you get to that size of an artistry and you're doing these size of projects and tours, you know, having that infrastructure of a large mainstream label probably makes more sense because cost wise, it's probably gonna be a lot lower to get these deals done. You know, time wise, they probably have a lot of ways to save time on getting these things done. So once you know, get to a certain size, maybe not Taylor Swift size, but just size in general, it probably makes sense to either build out your personal team even more or get signed to a major label because there's the infrastructure already built out there.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like no matter what, when you begin to grow, you're going to end up either partnering with in some shape forms or dealing with labels, you know, and it depends on like I said, it depends on what you want, the route you will take. Me personally, I don't ever see myself like just signing directly to a label because it's my mindset. It's because like in my mindset, I work hard to build this brand. Why would I give it to you for it that you didn't work? I don't mind partnering with a label. And you know what, we work together, we'll split that. But me personally, just signing everything over, I would never see myself doing that because I know what I put into this just to give it up. Like I did all this work just to give it to you. Like in business mind, that don't make any sense to me. So business mind, I'm gonna think of like, okay, what we do together, we can split that. But yeah, for sure, you definitely in some way, shape, form, the bigger you get, the bigger your team has to expand. And no matter whatever form that comes in, that is definitely facts. And the more levels you get to, the more infrastructures you build, you have to have people to oversee it. So whether that looks like partnering with a label on that end, or that looks like just simply building your team. Because another thing to keep in mind is the people that's under these labels, you can also directly reach out to them as well. And a lot of times you get a better price for people that do certain things versus when they know you're on the label. When they know you're on the label, they're usually going to overcharge you because they know it's not your money anyways. But when you reach out directly, you usually can especially if you build a relationship, you usually can get a better rate for things. But you know, like I said, some people don't even want to do that. Some people don't even want to build a relationship. They don't want to do that. So it's like, it's easier for them to partner or deal with labels. So.
Yeah. And I mean, it kind of goes back to just the general thing of all business is all about who you know. You know, if you have those relationships built, whether you're a small, musical artist or a big label, you have those relationships. You can probably, you know, work things out, get deals done quicker and better rates, all the things like that. Sure. And we've kind of been talking around it, but I kind of wanted to get into your actual business, Ashton Martin Entertainment. Mm-hmm. And I've talked about what the thought was behind building that out. And I know we kind of talked about how you're not trying to build a label, but also like you kind of have built a label in a way. So kind of talk about just how you built that and your thoughts about kind of that idea of being a label versus not being a label.
Yeah, so initially, I started Ashton Martin Entertainment simply just to have something on the business side legally to represent me as an artist outside of my personal self. That was the original intention for it. But as it began to expand, and as I began to work in the business, I began to see the need for it. Me personally, my goal when it came to working with other artists was never just to sign artists, but to get artists to where they wanted to be. So it would be more managing artists and brokering deals for them if they ever wanted to connect with major labels. Just somebody to make sure that your back is covered at the end of the day and knows the business and knows like, okay, if I am to sign this label, I'm telling you clear, this is what they expect from you. This is what you're gonna have to be able to provide, But that was my mindset when dealing with other artists. But from then it began, like as I moved more independent, I seen like, okay, you have to have these different parts of the business. So it's like, okay, so now I need a videographer. I need producers, you know what I'm saying? It's better for me in the long run to have them on my team versus to keep outsourcing, keep spending so much money outsourcing. And from there, it began with me and my wife. My wife began to manage me. I picked up artists along the way. I'm entitled One Drew, and as of now, he's the only other artist that's under AME. But for him, it was actually seeing what we can actually do with an artist because we met him in he's from where I'm from, but I didn't know him growing up. I actually met him at an open mic in Tallahassee. And it started with just building a relationship, coming and talking to him. Hey, nice show. That was dope. And, he purchased some merchandise. He purchased some other things. So I noticed he kept showing love. He got cool with my wife. My wife was like, she actually want to take him on the first international tour in 2019. I was on the last leg and we was going to Toronto, Canada. So I was like, let's test it out. Let's let him go with us to Canada. We'll see what it's like. We'll see what the vibe. From there, we kind of built like a brotherhood. Me and him became like literally to this day, I call him my brother. And so I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely makes sense. This was somebody that I would actually love working close with. And since taking him on, man, we began to develop him as a performing artist. The performance I seen him at was his first performance he ever did. And like now, if you see him perform, you would never know. You'd be like, this guy is crazy. You'd be like, whoa, this is crazy. And we've done collaboration projects, but just seeing him grow as an artist, it let me know what I can do with AME. I'm like, okay, I can really do this. You know what I'm saying? And that was on that side of things. But we also got more into the community side of what we wanted to grow as where I'm from. Because where I'm from, it's not a lot of resources at all. I mean, you have like the regular school systems, and then you have sports. And outside of that, there's no arts, there's no creativity resources. It's nothing like that. So we started to Wait, Motivate, Educate, which is the other side of AME, to bring those resources back to the community. So we're going to be setting up workshops. And I really want like kids coming up to actually see firsthand what the life of any parts of this music business is like. I want to have kids shadowing engineers, producers, artists, like, and because you never know what seed may be planted and what actually may spark them. Like, okay, cool, I actually want to do this. Because I remember growing up, I always wanted to be a firefighter until I seen what firefighters do, and I was like, nah, I'm good on that. Like, it took me one time to really shadow them. I'm like, yeah, nah, I don't think this is what I would want to do. Like, so even that is like a step in the right direction, because at least you know what you don't want to do. So so those are like the base things of AME, and the difference between what I would say being a label and not being a label is one. I don't have the intentions of taking a artist's like likeness or like actually taking the revenue that they make from their music. That's never my intention. If anything, the furthest I would go would be just to manage an artist. And one of it is because dealing with the headaches that will comes with and then also being an artist myself, I don't really have the time to allocate. My wife is a manager, but she's focused on two artists right now, so she don't even have the time to allocate that. And then another thing, just being my morals and what I believe in as far as like an artist, like not wanting to take that away from an artist. So a lot of times if an artist was coming to me wanting to be signed, I would tell them right off the back, it's like, that I wouldn't feel comfortable signing you. I would feel more comfortable developing you where you want to go, and then, doing business from there. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I'm always be business minded when dealing with an artist, but I'm not gonna just be the person just to take from you. And I know a lot of people don't understand that as an artist, what comes with that. But that's just my mindset. And that's why I don't necessarily label AME a label. But in the music side of things, it's seen more of as an entertainment business, just to help artists get to where they need to, or any producers, engineers, just being that connector or that bridge.
Yeah. Do you ever see? I mean, I love the kind of the way you're thinking about it, keeping it small, keeping the ethical side of it correct, and how you want to business it or manage it. Do you ever see yourself kind of expanding a little bit, bringing on more artists, kind of adding managers, and expanding it that way, or do you still want to keep it like small, 2 artists, 3 artists that I can manage, me and my wife can manage on our own?
For sure, I definitely see ourselves, building on top of what we have. Of course, definitely. I don't necessarily, I can't say or necessarily say how big I would want to get. But I definitely could see us expanding with artists and managers. One thing I also will say, we're very selective on who we choose to. It's usually something personal as well that has to be built, because if we're working together, we usually work very, very close together. And if I can't stand you, it's gonna be tough to just keep it on a business level, just working. And so it's like, I always like to make sure that's on as well. On the artistry side, I have a lot of artists that come to me, and I probably choose 10% out of the artists that come to me to even do anything with it all. And a lot of time, I'm usually gonna do like a test run, like I'm gonna do a trial just to see, just to feel you out, because like I said, it's still music at the end of the day, and it's all about chemistry. If you look at all the great artists, it's a chemistry between them and somebody else that made it work. You know what I'm saying? So I thoroughly believe in that. And if I feel like the chemistry is not there, even if you're a great artist, if we don't have the chemistry together, or you and a manager doesn't have the chemistry together, it's not gonna work. So I always want to make sure that nobody's time is wasted. I don't want to waste my time, and I don't want to waste your time. So.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of see it on my side of my business. Like if when I hire and kind of grow my business, it's going to be on a contract basis, a 6-month contract maybe, or a 3-month contract. See how you work with me, see your work ethic, see your, the time that you put in the projects and your skill level. At the end of the day, you're paid to deliver. So seeing your skill level. And then, if we form a good connection, if we work really well together, maybe then I'll hire you and bring you on as a, creative partner or a editor or a producer, whatever, whoever it is. So yeah, I think, it makes a lot of sense for anybody in business, but especially like in the creative side, work with them, once or twice on a contract basis, work with them, on certain projects here and there, project basis. And then once you see it's a good fit, or you see, they have maybe good ideas to grow your business, be like, hey, can you come on and actually help us grow that way? So I think it makes a lot of sense to do the contract side of it before you even talk about hiring, because hiring is such a commitment. It's it's not just the salary of like, we're going to pay you $75,000 a year or whatever. It's also like, we're going to pay for insurance. We're going to pay for taxes. We're going to pay for, retirement. Maybe if we want to contribute to a retirement account, all these different like things, and, payroll and all these different expenses that you have for them is really, really important, and really hard to justify. So working on it, especially if it's a person that you may like not work with in another 3 months because they don't work out. So if you hire them right away, that's a really big commitment that you're making on a kind of on a whim and not really working. So I think, like you talked about, a contract basis, working them on a project basis makes a lot more sense for you, especially because you want to keep your business on the ethical side of like how you want to actually grow it, and want to actually the values you want to keep inside the business. I think that makes a lot of sense for you.
Most definitely. And it's kind of like a marriage, You're not just gonna meet a person and marry them right off the bat. Like, you're gonna date. You're gonna have the time where you're seeing who this person actually is first before you make any type of commitment. So yeah, that I usually begin with anything I do outsourcing. And, from there, if it goes any further, or, contract and outsource, if it goes any further, then we begin to, bring you in actually, and like I said, it's one thing. I never rush that process. And every person that I have on my team, I can definitely say that I'm thankful I went through that process with them, and they're solid individuals. Like, it's people that I know for a fact I can count on. It's no question. I don't ever want to question that. I don't ever want to be like, can I actually count on you? Are you really going to deliver? It's
Yeah.
solid. Like, I know for a fact that you're going to deliver because it's consistent.
Absolutely. So let's kind of transition the conversation. Now you have a couple other parts of your business and just entrepreneurial journey that you have. So let's transition into the business consulting that you do. Talk about where that came from, where that business idea or side of your business came from, and what all that looks like for you on a daily basis.
So it really started this year, but I noticed I've always had a passion of seeing people do what they love to do or seeing people inside of their passion. And like we spoke about earlier, like sometimes I watch cooking shows and I can't cook at all, but just watching them do what they do is so cool to me. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's how it grew. And then like a lot of my family around me, I don't know if it was because watching what we do, they begin to have aspirations and entrepreneurship ideas and so many things that they wanted to do. And it's kind of like, I can't necessarily bring you on to what I'm doing, but I would love to help you. Whatever I can do to help you get to where you're trying to get to, let's do that. And then, you know, I feel like the music business itself is such a difficult business that by being in this business, it's made me sharp in general. I didn't even realize until I began to start helping people. And I'm like, oh, you actually got something that you can physically make. Oh, this is easy. Like, this is all you have to do. You can do this, did it, X, Y, Z, and you can easily get this. Like, you know, just know that this is the state laws of where you at. This is da 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 da. And just seeing that, I'm like, oh snap, I can actually do this. Like, the first business that we actually helped were my wife's mother. She is catering. So she always could cook. Like, that was hands down. I remember that's the first thing I knew about her when I met her. I was like, oh my gosh, this lady can cook. Like, that just like abnormally can cook. It's just super good. So I always told her, I was like, she needs to do something with that. Like, that's like, and she has a passion for it. She loves just seeing people full, seeing people happy, you know, and I was like, you know, we talked to her about it a couple of times. And then when she finally came around to it, like literally the first week she came out as a business, she was already making profit just like that. And literally all we did was gave her ideas of what to cook, what would make the most sense as far as what she was putting in and what she would get out from it. The market where we're at, where we stay, we know what people have, what's around the restaurants that they have, and we know what they don't have. And even if they do have them, we know what's good and what's not good. So it's automatic, like, okay, just do this. Boom, it's going to automatically bring profit in. She already had made a name just by cooking. So people were going to automatically know that. So it was just like giving her different tips, different things. And literally the first week, she only did it for 2 days. And she had already made a profit for everything she put in on top of that. And now I think she's like on her fourth week now. And she's beginning to, you know, just make profit and build her business now. She's already looking at getting a venue, getting a space, getting a I forgot what it's called. One of the things, pretty much like the little mobile cook things. You can like set up shop in different areas.
Like a food truck type thing?
Yeah, like a food truck. She's on her way to doing a food truck. And so that's the next part we're assisting her at. And you know, that was just seeing her grow at that. It made us like, okay, we can actually do this. We can help people. And it's really just started as just something to just help our family. Because we had the mindset of like, we don't want to be the only source in the family. We want everybody to be able to, you know, step into what they love to do. And, you know, from there, it just kind of like grows, just watching people do their passion. I think that was like the number one thing that came with that business side. Like, just, I love people doing what they do, and whatever way I can help or assist and what I know and what I've seen.
Yeah.
Do it.
Absolutely. And it kind of goes back to our original conversation about kind of the creative side versus the business side. You know, you can be passionate about something and really good at it, but building a business out of it is a completely different skill. You know, you could be a great photographer, but if you don't know how to, you know, get clients or, you know, market yourself, post content on social media, manage social media, all these different things, you're not going to get any work. So it's all about kind of taking that passion and letting the person be really passionate about what they do and show off their skills. And then it sounds like you kind of come in and say like, okay, you need to register as this business entity, or you need to do this for taxes and accounting, and you need to, look at this food truck idea, because that could be a really good idea for you to make more money and be profitable. And also, like, what does
Yeah.
profit look like? I'm sure
Yeah,
that she
exactly.
has certain things that she really likes to use, or things that she really likes to cook. And then you kind of come in and look at them and say, okay, this item is going to be really profitable because the cost to make it is really low, and you can sell it for this, or you can price it this way. And those are probably things that she never thought about. So you can kind of come in and say, this is how we're going to, organize your business, because this is what makes sense from a business perspective versus a passion perspective.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's really just getting people in the right direction, because people usually have the skills. They just don't know where to go, what direction are you. Like you said, it's just little simple things like that that makes such a big difference, between it actually being a successful business or just a passion.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last kind of area of your business that I'm really curious to ask you about and learn about is the Medicare thing, because that just seems like such a left turn out of what you're usually doing. But it sounds like there's a really like good reason why you're starting that kind of business, and really like a personal reason why you wanted to start that. So can I talk about where that idea came up with and how you're kind of running that side of your business right now?
Yeah, so that began in, I'll say, 2020. The seeds of that with Medicare. My wife actually was in Medicare first. She was in Medicare since 2018. And she always told me about it, but I never cared. She was like, you should look into it. Da, da, da. I was like, I'm good. That seems like a whole, because I always thought, I tried insurance before, and it just wasn't my thing. Like life insurance, I was like, that's not my thing. Like it's just not me. But in 2020, if like COVID hit, my grandparents to me were like, they played a big role in raising me. Especially becoming the person I am. And, I lost both of them, one in 2020 and one in 2021. And during that process of seeing their children, trying to figure out these things at the latter end, or like trying to, and my wife, she stepped in where she could step in. But a lot of things, it was like too late in a sense, and it was kind of like, man, if we only knew more, we could have did more. And so that was kind of like the spark of me getting into Medicare, really just to help people that come from where I come from. It's like, we don't have that knowledge of like benefits that you're really owed these benefits. It's just that you don't know the knowledge of obtaining these benefits. So it's like, I got into that of just in a sense of like wanting to help my community, like really wanted to go back to my community and help be that person to step in the situations that I would in that could have made so much more of a difference, So I think that's just my passion. It's just on the Medicare end, just making sure that that generation, the elderly and their kids, are aware of what they have benefits to. And, it can make our lives different. And a lot of people don't think about it until it's too late, until like, okay, now you're dealing with your parents or your grandparents in a convalescent, or now they're on hospice care, or now they're in these situations, and now you're dealing with the bill, trying to sort this out. It's kind of like, if you have these things in place ahead of time, not only will their health be taken care of, but their finances be taken care of. And that takes less stress off of you, because no matter what, we're all going to hit that point where our parents are not going to be able to take care of themselves. So it's always something to think of. And I know me, I relate more to the people of my generation, and that kind of like get into them, because sometimes it's kind of hard for the older generation. They're kind of stuck in their ways, but I know they listen to their children. So to me, that's really my target, is like telling them like, yo, make sure that your parents are good. So when they get to this point, you know what I'm saying, you don't have to worry, you don't have to stress, because it really comes down on us at the end of the day. When they're not able to take care of ourselves, it comes back on us. So, it's just really that was like my mindset with it. And my wife, like I said, she had the more experience in it. So she's been doing it for about 3-4 years. And then she came up with the idea, even by herself, before I was even involved. She was like, I want to build a Medicare agency, because she was like, legit, like the first year she did it, she was killing the game, automatically, like she built a network in a place that we're not even from. Like I said, we're from Florida. We were she was in Atlanta. She had already built a network of Medicare on the agency end. She had already connected with all these different providers. I was like, well, that's crazy. So she was like, I'm gonna make my own agency. and she was still trying to get me on board, and I still wasn't with it. But then after that point, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna help you with your agency because I see where I fit into this as well. So right now I'm working on my license, and then you have the season for it usually comes around the end of the year. And I worked in last year just to test it out. I was doing more so on the front end of it, just kind of like learning and interacting with the elderly and seeing, how I liked it. And I loved it. It was like so easy. It was like just natural to me. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and get my license and really help my wife with building this business. And she's been killing it. She's already built the business. She's already got it in motion. I'm just gonna come in and give my helping hand to her like she did with me on the music end. So
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, insurance is one of those things where like you never really think about what it actually is, like what actually is used for. Cause like
yeah,
for me, like I'm 23, I'm still on my parents' like insurance, but I also like I'm scheduling my doctor's appointments. I'm doing all these own things. And when they're like, "Oh, do you have insurance?" I'm like, "Yeah, I have medical insurance." And they're like, "Okay, but like," and then I'll get a bill in the mail for something that like wasn't covered by insurance. Like I don't know
exactly.
what actually having insurance means, I guess, is like nobody talks about that to you as like a kid, or even when you get a little older, nobody actually talks about like what having insurance means and what you are
For
covered
real.
for and not covered for. And especially if you're under your parents' care, you don't really see any of those documents or you're not in those conversations at all. So what were some of the things that you kind of realized like, oh, people don't know about this, but it could really help? What were some of the things that you focused on when you were talking to people in your family or in your neighborhood, or just people that you started working with? What were the things that people really didn't know about that could be really beneficial to them?
No, it's literally like you said. Like it was just a general not knowing of insurance, and I get it because I was the same way. Like I was under my parents' insurance for the longest. It didn't come to like bills coming in on my own. I'm like, oh snap, this isn't covered. Why is this not covered? What's up with this? Like,
Yeah.
just that and speaking amongst my peers is where I began with it. Like, yo, what do you know about your peers? What would you do if this happens to your parents and they're not able to take care of themselves? What because it's on you, right? You know that. And it's kind of like them being like, y'all know nothing about it. I don't know nothing about. I'm like, do you even know the age that they're supposed to be signing up for Medicare? Nah, I don't. What is Medicare? Like, it's just those simple conversation of just not knowing nothing about it. And I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, it's kind of crazy. Like having those conversations with people and seeing like, okay, the not knowing of it in general. It's kind of like one of a big like um just it's like a big sea of unknown knowledge, and people don't ever really think about it until it's too late. And like I said, being in your early 20s, you don't really experience it, but when you hit like the mid 20s coming into your 30s, if you don't experience it for yourself, then you're going to experience your parents dealing with something. Like I know even my mom now, um she has arthritis, and it's kind of like I didn't even realize my mom was getting to that age. Like it's kind of like, I
Yeah.
guess I always seen her like younger, and then like now I'm noticing like, oh snap, like she's actually getting older. These are
Yeah.
things that I have to think about now. These are things of like, okay, if my mom is becomes disabled, what am I gonna do? Because I'm the oldest child of my mother, so I'm gonna be making these decisions. Like, what am I gonna do? And like just talking to other people that's in the same exact position. That's really where it started at. And then even talking to the elderly, I have a lot. Like I said, I have a lot of older cousins because of where I fall in at my family. So it's
Hmm.
like having conversations with them, like, okay, what does your plan look like? Okay, what do you pay when you go to the doctor? Do you have payments when you go to the doctor? And I know it's a
Hmm.
lot of them on terrible plans. It's like you shouldn't even be paying anything just for
Yeah.
regular. You going regular visits and you paying this much. This is terrible. Like, okay, we got to do something about this. We got to help. So like those are like the conversations that were being had that made me realize like, okay, something definitely needs to be done because it's too common. Like I shouldn't. Every person I talk to, this shouldn't be the conversation that we're having. Like every
Hmm.
person I talk to, I can see the need for a better, either awareness of insurance or a better plan just in general. So, it's just
Absolutely.
that need. Like you see the need and it's like, okay, I know I can do something to solve this. So what are the steps that we take from here?
Yeah, I mean, and it seems like in every part of your business, you're kind of serving some sort of a need. Whether it's with AME, you're giving back to your community. With the business, you see potential in businesses, and you're trying to consult with them and help them build out something because it's their passion. For the
For
Medicare thing,
sure.
you have a family connection there, but also you just see a general need of education and understanding what they want to do. And I love that. That's kind of your passion, what you built. To close out the podcast, I'd love to just have you share kind of a business tip that you have for any entrepreneurs, younger entrepreneurs that are looking to get into business. What kind of advice would you give to them?
To young entrepreneurs, I would say this: don't focus so much on what everyone else is doing. Focus so much on your interests. Literally, the way I structure my business, I look at everything that I do, everything that I love, everything that I'm passionate about on a daily basis, and figuring out a way to turn that into a business. And that's literally like all the great people I've ever heard. It's so many tips and tricks out there, but when it boils down to it, that's really what it is. Because you have a lot of people that say that anyone can do this, anyone can do that. But at the end of the day, it's really about what do you want to do? Because if you don't have the want to do it, you're gonna really hinder yourself and you're gonna waste your time. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I would say. I would say look at what you're actually passionate about. Look at what do you do on a daily basis, just naturally, what's natural to you, and then find the ways to turn that into a business. Find the steps. What is the next steps? Break it down into steps. Okay, this is step one. This is step two. This is what I'm doing after this to actually make it into something that's profitable to you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that advice. It's a great way to close it out. Thank you again so much for coming on the podcast. If
For
people want to
sure.
find you online, connect with you, where can they find you?
So I always say the easiest way to keep up with me is to simply text AME to 850-754-1956. Once you do that, it'll send you all my social information everywhere you can find me on every single platform. But if you want to manually type everything in, it's Ashton Martin on all social platforms. If you want to search the music, it's Ashton Martin on all music platforms. But like I said, the easiest way to keep and to stay up to date with anything that I have going on is to simply text AME to 850-754-1956, and it'll send you everything from there.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This is a
Thank you for
great
having me.
conversation. And we will see you next time on the Rest of Us podcast. Take
Thank you
care.
so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Rest of Us podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider leaving a rating or review on the podcasting platform of your choice. It really helps me see that you are enjoying the episode and also helps other people see the podcast. Also, please consider giving a follow on social media. All the links will be in the show notes down below. Also, in the show notes, there is a link to the Rest of Us newsletter. This is a platform where I'll send out different takeaways from the episode, resources that were mentioned in the episode, and also notifications about new episodes. So make sure you click the link to subscribe there. So episodes are released weekly, and I will see you then on the next episode of the Rest of Us podcast.